Guten Morgen. Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch, aber ich bin ein bisschen schüchtern auf Deutsch, so it's much better in English. So yes, I'll be speaking about speaking up, whistleblowing. I'll tell you my story. But the first part of my presentation is going to be a little bit grim. But I promise you, it's a wake-up call. I say the things that I do, and I'm, speaking publicly around the world, mainly because I care. I want to see positive growth and progress globally, in particular in Europe. Europe is in terminal decline. Absolute terminal decline. However you gauge it, and Europe is self-harming itself. It's doing it to itself because of bad economic policy and bad energy policy. Just to put things in perspective, one US company, NVIDIA, the chip maker, currently is worth approximately $4.2 trillion, nearly twice the market cap of every German listed company. That's twice the market cap of Germany's entire stock market. If we look at global equities and look at the market share, approximately 20 years ago, Europe commanded something like 20 to 30% market share of global equities, depending on the methodology used. Today, it's down at around 10%. Let's look at Germany. GDP. For the full year of 2024, Germany shrank approximately 0.2% versus US growth of approximately 2.5%. Whatever metric you look at, productivity, research and development spend, patent registrations, or GDP growth and GDP per capita, the gap between Europe and Germany in particular and the US is growing, and Europe is going the wrong way. So while the US was innovating and everything, from the fourth industrial revolution to now the AI boom, China growing, and other countries, Europe was regulating. Europe came out with its Green New Deal. And the Green New Deal was supposed to transform the economy for growth, energy efficiency, and innovation. It has done the opposite. As I referred to earlier, any metric you look at, economically, Europe is lagging. Europe is shrinking. Now, I'm sorry to deliver this, and I'm going to tie in my own story. How did I get here? I was once, a champion of this whole ESG, net zero movement. This multi-trillion-dollar industrial complex that I thought was going to make the world a better place. I was completely behind Europe's Green New Deal and thought Europe was the leader here. America is trailing. In 2020, I got my dream job. I was a chief sustainability officer at Deutsche Bank's approximately $1 trillion asset manager, DWS. And I thought, what impact I could have. My goodness, $1 trillion under management. Unfortunately, the euphoria didn't last. Very quickly, I tripped over some uneasiness at the firm. I had recognized the firm was making false claims about their ESG capabilities. How I found out? Wirecard. It's like every road leads to Wirecard, or Wirecard leads to everything that's rotten. DWS had, it's not against the law to make a bad investment. Like, it's not against the law to be just bad at investments. But there was something, what bothered me, and where I saw a potential regulatory breach, is that Wirecard was a top position in DWS's flagship ESG fund. And again, just for the avoidance of doubt, ESG stands for Environment, Social, and Governance, right? It's socially responsible, it's ethical, it's good. Wirecard holds the top position. In DWS's risk systems, Wirecard has the second highest ESG rating. And through, by the way, June 2020. So, Marcus Brown is getting arrested, the company collapses, but DWS is still supporting Wirecard because in its risk report it says it has great corporate governance, citing strong business ethics. Something's wrong here. So that's what led me to uncover the biggest greenwashing scandal in the financial markets. It did take a few months, but I realized that my CEO, and I reported directly to the CEO, and also the folks across the street at Deutsche Bank, they were using ESG as a marketing scam, a gimmick. It was a great growth market at the time, and you can use ESG, position yourself and say you're great at it, and suddenly, oh my goodness, your stock price is going up. And that's what happened. DWS was making false claims that their ESG integration, their risk assessment systems were better than anyone else's. It was world class. It was above industry standards. It used artificial intelligence. Internally, there was one word how we described it, and everyone knew this, including the CEO. This risk assessment system wasn't world class. The most commonly used word to describe it was the word shit. That's what was said internally. It had high operational risk, it was unreliable and stale. Externally, my CEO said that the majority of the $1 trillion assets, the majority of the assets under management were ESG aligned. Internally, we're like, where did that dude get that figure? We don't have a tracking system. All we could do was manually approximate it, and the number wasn't what he said, 451 billion euros. The number was more like 125. That's a massive delta. There were many other false claims, but that's the problem. It wasn't that the company was doing ESG badly. It was that the company was lying to the public. The company was using ESG to ride up its share price and attract more assets under management, knowing internally it was shit at it. There was no capability. There was a massive gap between what the company was publicly saying and the actual internal reality, what was documented and said. I raised these concerns to the board, the Vorstand, at several Vorstandssitzungen. And, at my last one, there was just silence in the room. I asked for changes. The changes didn't happen. I asked the company to restate certain messaging in the annual report. I had redlined it. And rather than accepting the changes and telling the market the truth, the CEO fired me. And not only fired me, they went all in. I was fired. My visa here in Germany was revoked, so I was thrown out of the country. It's very easy to get rid of Ausländer, by the way, because boy, did they get rid of me in 2 weeks. And the company reached out to the media and publicly discredited me. The CEO directly said that I underperformed and I had questionable business ethics. And that was posted in Bloomberg. So I didn't go external. I spoke up internally, but I didn't whistleblow. They did. They figured they'd never hear from me. Got that one wrong. Anyway, so what do? And I didn't know. I really struggled what to do. And I thought, put this behind me. I just have to find another job and move on with life. The problem was, every interview I went to, there was the elephant in the room, the Bloomberg article. And everyone's asking me, Des, what happened? You got fired for a compliance breach. And I'm like, no, I didn't. So I couldn't get a job, and I struggled. I sat on it for a while, and I realized I have to clear my name. I also realized something else. This whole ESG machine, all of this greenwashing stuff, lying about, fear-mongering about a climate catastrophe, everyone pronouncing that diversity is their number one priority. They're all about climate action. Every company was coming out with statements, we're here to save the planet and the people. And I realized, I know DWS is full of shit, but you know what? I think this is happening around the world. I think everyone's in on this. Everyone's greenwashing. So I decided to tell my story. And just so happens, a good friend of mine is a prominent journalist, and he used to run a fairly well-known newspaper, the Wall Street Journal. So I reached out to Jerry, and we had dinner. And I'm like, listen, I think I have a story for you. Anyway, I gave the Wall Street Journal the goods. They did their own investigation. And what happened next was a dramatic series of events. The Wall Street Journal published their story largely in support of my allegations against Deutsche DWS. 2 days later, the U.S. law enforcement called me up, and that was the financial watchdog, the BaFin in the U.S., the SEC, the FBI, and the Department of Justice, and said that they've opened up an investigation against DWS on material ESG misstatements. Shortly thereafter, the Bundeskriminalamt gave me a call and said, wow, we read your story. Funny, we have some criminal investigations against some of these folks at Deutsche Bank too. And lastly, and probably least, the BaFin reluctantly, jumped in. To make a long story short, there was a federal police raid at Deutsche Bank's headquarters. 50 federal agents in Germany raided both headquarters, DWS and Deutsche Bank. And the CEO was removed. That said, I think most of senior leadership was removed. The market cap of DWS collapsed by 14%. It cost tens of millions of dollars to defend itself against these charges. Eventually, the U.S. rendered a guilty verdict and levied the largest greenwashing fine in the finance space. This year in April, the Frankfurt prosecutors also rendered a guilty verdict that DWS had made material misstatements. So, obviously this is a lesson. My story is largely about don't lie to the public. But, again, there's a bigger significance to it. And that is, this isn't just a story of, DWS misleading investors or shareholders. It's not a story, BlackRock did the same, right? All of the financial institutions. The harm isn't just in fleecing investors, overcharging, right, for ESG investments that were largely investments in companies like NVIDIA and Apple, right? These weren't investments in in vital need like infrastructure. The issue was that the whole movement caused so much harm to the public. This whole net zero movement, Green New Deal, that has been in the works for approximately 20 years, is the main reason why Europe is collapsing, why Europe is in terminal decline. As the US innovates, China replicates, Europe just regulates. AI technology, by the way, is like, I go to so many, government meetings and think tanks, and everyone always talks about quantum computing and artificial intelligence. And I'm like, you know what? The technology is the easy part. The hard part is access to affordable energy. That's it. The winners today, look at China. They don't care where they get their energy. Go coal, right? Same thing in the US, drill, baby, drill. And the reason is that's, again, the AI race is about access to affordable energy. And Europe just choked itself. Ban on fracking in Germany, ban on nuclear energy. That's clean. It's crazy. Red tape everywhere. There's really no AI here in Europe. No, but there's AI regulation. Digital Services Act. Everywhere you look, you're in a straitjacket here. Why? Right? The officials say, it's to protect the consumer. No, it's about control. And that's why I'm here. It's a wake-up call. We all want a clean environment. Of course, we want clean air, clean soil, clean water. But ESG regulations, all of these SFDR, this alphabet soup of crazy, CS3D, CSRD. I mean, it's so ridiculous, all of these hundreds of regulations here. Hundreds of line items that companies are forced to estimate in reporting. Why? On carbon emissions? What is the carbon emission of your value chain? Who gives a shit, right? Carbon emissions aren't going down. They're skyrocketing because of China. So Europe driving down its carbon emissions doesn't make the environment cleaner. You're not going to get cleaner water because of it. All that happens is you cause economic demise. You have less capacity to fund innovation, to find an alternative to fossil fuels. So you need to drill, baby drill, maintain the system, have a buoyant capital markets to innovate. And maybe in the future, we can find a cleaner version, a cheaper version to fossil fuels. But in the meantime, if you reduce your access to energy, it chokes your economy until the lights go out. That's it. There is no climate catastrophe. That is just fear-mongering by politicians. There is climate change. And some of it is good. 8 to 10 times more people die because of cold weather than heat. Right? So some of the effects of climate change is positive. Some of the effects of climate change is negatives. But with access to affordable energy, we can grow our economy to adapt. So climate is not existential. Europe is not in terminal decline because of climate change. The issues here are real. It's an economic squeeze. High tax burden, over-regulation. The issues we face when you're looking at the voters, there's an affordability crisis. That's real. There's war. And finally, there are low birth rates. How are we going to maintain the welfare state? Even Friedrich Merz had to admit that. So again, there were good intentions to this whole ESG net zero movement. But intentions are not outcomes. The outcomes have been bad. And it's very important that folks in Europe red pill and wake up to this. You've seen the big shift in the US. I know the US has a lot of problems, but economic growth and innovation, it's not one of them. Here, it's very, very different. So I'm sorry I was critical, but as I said earlier, I am an open book, and I'd be pleased to take any questions that you may have and challenges. I am used to it, and it's A-okay. So with that, thank you for listening, and I hope you guys have some questions.
Thank you so much, Desiree. And I start with some questions, and maybe you can also have your questions here with the QR code. So, Desiree, some people might say you only blew the whistle to clear your name after you had been fired. What would you say? Is that true?
Yes, it is true. Absolutely. I did it to clear my name and to find work. I'm a single mom of 3. Need to work, need to make money, and the first way was to clear my name. Absolutely.
Okay, and so you don't regret the whistleblowing at all, I guess, huh? Do you?
No.
It's a tough journey, though.
No, of course, and I don't recommend it to anybody, what I did. But it was a black and white situation, right? I was asked to lie, and that's against the law, and I knew that. So I myself didn't want to get in trouble. Neither did I want the company to get in trouble. So at the time, I never imagined, what would transpire. At the time, I thought I was saving the company.
Yeah, okay. And as you told us, you want to eliminate ESG from the corporate agenda. But if ESG is the wrong way, what's the right framework companies should be measured by?
So by, profits. We have a system that is based on shareholder capitalism. Companies are set up to make good products and services, right? I don't want, I just flew British Airways and it's banging on about net zero. I don't want them distracted by looking at carbon capture and storage. I want the company to invest in safety, right? I don't want, again, like Deutsche Bank, just, you had Deutsche Bank that couldn't even maintain bank accounts for their deposit holders because it was too busy talking about ESG. So companies are set up to do a specific product or service, stay in your lane. And by the way, if you want to do good, right? So I always get asked this, if you want to do good, become a nurse, become a firefighter, right? But don't become an engineer to make the world to forge ahead on climate action. Just make good products and services, and that's goodness. That's integrity.
Okay. There's one question coming in from the audience. It's I guess, the same direction, but I will give you the question. You might be right, but what could we do better? I don't want to live in a state like US or China, so especially for here in Europe. You had a lot of critics about Europe, so...
First thing is repeal net zero. Repeal your ban on nuclear. Repeal your ban on fracking. Reduce red tape, reduce tax, and you're going to see it's totally reversible. Do a Thatcher. Within 1 year, you can reverse the demise. Stay on this course, keep these policies, going to shrink into insignificance.
Okay, thank you, Desiree. And what do you think today about the role of chief sustainability officers and ESG managers? Do you believe many companies created this position mainly for appearances rather than real impact?
100%. There's no reason.
100%. Okay.
100%. There's no reason for that. That again is bureaucracy, right? A sustainability officer is like a jack of all trades, a master of none. They're mainly repurposed consultants. They never walked the floor. They don't know how to build a car. There's no reason to have sustainability officers or ESG.
Okay, I hope there's no ESG or sustainability officer in the audience here. Is there? No, okay. They won't let us know now. And Desiree, the new EU Omnibus initiative reduces ESG reporting requirements. Do you consider this a positive or a negative development?
It's the same old BS from Brussels. Again, they make bad policies. They get to hire more consultants, spend more money of your taxpayer money to redo the original bad policies. Just scrap it. Why have it? Why have it?
Okay, Thank you so much. That was my last question. There are no more questions coming in right here, so I would say thank you very much, Desiree, for being here on our Finance Summit stage and your talk on ESG, greenwashing, and your whistleblowing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is your applause again. Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you.